Okay, let's start. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, honorable chair and distinguished delegates. Welcome to the short diplomatic course by Foreign Policy Community of Indonesia, Chapter Universitas Pajajaran. My name is Ali Novansyah, and I will be your host today. You probably noticed that the world is still facing COVID-19 as a new international phenomenon. Not only that this pandemic affecting our public health dimensions, but it has also brought upon us profound economic effect on a global scale. So that's why you're here today to give your solutions and contributions to the world. To speak further than that, it's now my pleasure to introduce our board of directors that have played a role in representing Universitas Pajajaran for Model United Nations and debate in a national or international level. Ladies and gentlemen, please join with me in welcoming Muhammad Rafa Zain as head chair, Putri Samudra as co-chair, Priscilla Milena as first reporter, and Teja Kurniawan as second reporter.
All right, thank you very much, MC, for the introduction. And well, good morning, fellow delegates. So, how are we all doing today? I'm going to assume that that means we're all doing fine. Well, well, I'm sure we all know what we're here for today. And now this is the part where we explain a little bit about the topic that we are going to discuss today. But instead, I'm going to take the opportunity to explain more about the technicalities that we perhaps haven't explained during the MUN 101 we've had a few days ago. Now, first things first, we'd like to remind you, delegates, that during the voting of the motions, there will be something called seconds and objections. Now, the way this works that before voting on a motion can be done, we will first ask beforehand if there are seconds or objections for a motion, which basically means seconds mean you support this motion, and objections mean that you're against this motion. Now, now it is not compulsory to uh, raise your hand during these asking for seconds and objections, but there will be adverse consequences should there be, for example, no seconds or objections. Like if there are no seconds for a motion, it automatically fails without going through the voting procedure. Meanwhile, if there are no objections towards a motion, but there are seconds, that motion will automatically pass without a voting procedure. And with that being said, Putih, do you have anything else to explain, perhaps?
So thank you, Chair Jayan, for the opportunity. And good morning, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Putri Samudra, and you can call me instead Chair Putri or Putsam to make it easy. So today I'll be leading and accompanying Jayan as the head chair of this short diplomatic course of Fpci Unpad 2020. And I do hope that you would like to enjoy the roller coaster here as you get to know first what is the mandate of the ICASA Committee of the COVID-19 economic recession that will also threaten the world. So yes, as what you have seen in the study guide that we will discuss about the karmas that stands for the questions resolution must be answered. So our advices is please directly telling it further, and we do hope that you wouldn't make any mistakes regarding it. And don't forget to ask the cheers in case you are about to ask something regarding the ROP. Always remember the mandate of ICASA. Remember the discussion of the topic and also the way you deliver the karma as well. And since Jan has completed the description regarding the ROP itself, therefore we as the chairs wish that it should be debated in here, and good luck for it. That's all from me, Jan.
All right, thank you very much, Putri. And one more final point again before we start. Another reminder, should should you have any questions during the conference, just remember to use a point of parliamentary inquiry, and we will do the best of our capabilities to answer any of your questions. I hope that is well understood. Well, it seems we have 8 minutes left before our allocated time to start. Perhaps you would have more to explain. Putri, or perhaps me?
Actually, no, but probably we do hope that all the delegates in here will turn off delegates' camera since uh, probably we need to see the delegates in here properly. Then probably that's all for me.
Uh,
So yeah, please do turn on the camera when the committee session will be started exactly 7 minutes from now. Oh, okay. Uh, then maybe we need to take like a simulation inside of the simulation of setting the agenda probably. Like maybe
yes.
we will set a speakers list to discuss the agenda and the practice simulation is. Do you think that 30 seconds is enough?
Suppose that's enough, yes.
Okay, probably you can start.
All right, so we're going to simulate gathering delegates for the general speakers list, and this is just a simulation, so don't worry too much about the substance of your speeches. This is just a simulation, and just play along if you'd like. So we will now open the general speakers list. Are there any delegates wishing to be included in the general speakers list? Please use the raise hand feature on Zoom by either the participant tab or pressing Alt Y as the default shortcut.
Delegate, please raise your hand. This is just a simulation. Uh, we would like to check your raise hand feature on the Zoom. So in case you have the trouble regarding the raise hand itself, you can ask us.
So far, we're
Delegate?
not seeing any hands raised up.
Yes. Please do raise your hand like this. Okay, I have explained to you. Have you done it? Okay, the delegate of Philippines has raised, and the France also. Okay, South Korea and Australia also. I haven't seen Jamaica, Egypt. Okay, Netherlands. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, France. Probably Egypt. South Korea. Thank you very much. Egypt, Malta. Where are you then? Okay. Probably that's enough. And maybe we will go to the first session, which is the roll call. So the chairs wish that you would like to say whether present and voting in the session, okay? The delegate of Australia,
Present and voting.
okay? The delegate of France,
Delegate of France is present and voting.
the delegate of Egypt,
Delegate of Egypt is present and voting.
okay. We would like to say sorry for the delegate of Egypt since you have the confusion regarding the raise hand. So you better check out the participants feature, and below that there is a raise hand feature next to the mute me and invite feature. Have you found it?
Okay, I'm looking for it.
Have you? Okay, while Egypt is doing her business, let's just continue to the next roll call. The delegates of South Korea,
The delegates of South Korea is present and voting.
the delegate of Philippines,
The delegate of Philippines is present and voting.
okay, thank you, delegate of Philippines and South Korea, delegate of Jamaica, delegate of Jamaica, delegate of Jamaica is not present, delegate of Malta,
Delegate of Malta is present and voting.
okay, thank you very much, delegate of Malta. Probably that's enough for me. Jan, how about you?
Oh, all right. So it would appear that the delegate list in here has not been filled yet. So our apologies, delegates. Perhaps we could go through that roll call once again, just to make sure this time. And hopefully the rapporteur will be ready this time. I see. Actually, all right. Well, I suppose since we are nearing our starting time, and that means we will start the committee right now. And so this session of short diplomatic course of foreign policy committee Indonesia, chapter Unpad 2020 for the Council, Economic and Social Council is now in session. We will now start with the roll call. First off, delegate of Australia.
Delegate of Australia is present and voting.
Noted. Delegate of Egypt.
Delegate of Egypt is present and voting.
Acknowledged. And now, delegate of France.
Delegate of France is present and voting.
Noted. Delegate of Jamaica.
The delegate of Jamaica is present and voting.
Delegate of Malta. Delegate of Malta.
Delegate of Malta is present and voting.
Noted. The delegate of Netherlands.
The delegates of Netherlands is present and voting.
Duly noted. Delegate of Philippines.
The delegate of Philippines is present and voting.
As well. Delegate of South Korea.
The delegate of South Korea is present and voting.
All right, noted. Excuse me, rapporteur. South Korea is in row 20, up above, below Kenya. Under the name Korea Republic of, yes, right there. And now, please switch over to the rules tab. If you please, thank you. We have 8 delegates that are present and voting, which means the majority vote will be 5 delegates. The quorum vote will also be 5. The number of sponsors needed for a draft resolution will be 1, and the number of minimum signatories required for a draft resolution would be 2. The maximum total speaking time for a moderated caucus will be 20 minutes, with a speaking time of 120 seconds or 2 minutes per speaker, and the maximum time for an unmoderated caucus would be 20 minutes. And with that, we would now open the general speakers list. Are there any delegates wishing to be included in the general speakers list? Please raise your hand. Delegate of Australia, you have been acknowledged. Are there any others? Delegate of Egypt. The delegate of Philippines. Are there any others? We will entertain at least 5 speakers in the moment for the general speakers list. Another reminder that it is highly encouraged for delegates to participate in the general speakers list in order to elaborate on your basic stances to the other delegates as a starting point. Are there any others? Delegate of France. We will entertain for one more speaker. Are there any other delegates wishing to be included in the general speakers list? Unfortunately, seeing none, we will move on to the first speaker of the general speakers list, Delegate of Australia. The Delegate of Australia, you now have the floor.
Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Chair, Co-Chair, and Rapporteur for the opportunity. Since March 2020, almost every country adjusted lockdown systems to prevent the spreading of COVID-19 viruses. Government then put the concern to the health of the citizens. With the sudden emergence of this pandemic, creates a new problem. One of the impact of this pandemic brings an economic recession that many countries may fear to experience or face it. Australia is one of them. We may face the economic recession for about 3 times. The last recession was on 1990 until 1991. The high interest and the business investments are the strongest effects back then. Australia's GDPs in this pandemic season fell by 7%. Though the Reserve Bank of Australia analyzed the economic systems of Australia still run well and in a stable point. However, with the current condition, the best thing that we do is to saving the job seeker and the job keeper first. When the employer risen up and cut the unemployment, then it will prevent falling revenues. Thus, it's also stop and minimize the GDP fall due to the recession itself. Thank you.
Thank you very much, delegates. You still have 17 seconds left. How would you like to yield your time?
I give to the next delegates.
To whom? My apologies.
I'm sorry, pardon me.
To whom would you like to yield your time again?
No, I'm finished.
I assume that means you will yield back to the chair.
Yes, back to the chair.
All right. Again, another reminder, if you'd like to finish your general speakers list speech without allocating the time to anyone else or for questions, then you simply yield back to the chair. And with that, we now move on to the Delegate of Egypt. Delegate of Egypt, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Sobakul Khair, good morning. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. We, the Arab Republic of Egypt, would like to deliver our deep condolence during and regarding the situation we face right now, COVID-19 virus. And we also want to say thank you to the medical staff who work really hard to tackle this condition with the government. We, the Arab Republic of Egypt, is facing the same situation just like the other country, that is economy recession. More than 6.9 million, including the refugee, has lost their job. So because of that, Egypt, with the Republic of Egypt, try to lift up the economy by making sure the health condition of its citizen, and then we also deliver some essential supplies for masks and surgical gloves to the medical staff and the ones who needs it to so we could make the condition better, and uh, the citizens still could do the things that they used to do to make the economy better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate of Egypt. And with that, your time has elapsed. We, we now give the floor to the Delegate of Philippines.
Thank you, Honorable Chairs, distinguished delegates. Our country is facing the biggest crisis in nearly 8 decades. How we respond to the COVID-19 pandemic and how united we are in facing this common threat will determine our course for our nation. The Republic of Philippines is fully aware of the fact that all countries are suffering from economic downturn or even recession as the result of the COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic has disrupted the global economy and the well-being of the entire human population. No country is safe. The lockdowns and the quarantine policy that we have applied in our country are necessary. The decision that we have made is difficult and it will greatly affect the economy. In fact, the economy of the people around the world. But we firmly state that our priority is to save lives. The crisis that we are facing right now is different and much bigger than the previous one. Philippines' ultimate priority is to provide the needs for our people without exhausting the resources for our future. The quarantine had come at a great cost, but the decisions that we made is worth the life saved. Thank you. I would like to yield the time back to the chair.
All right, thank you very much, Delegate of Philippines. We now move on to the Delegate of France. You may now have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. Coronavirus pandemic effects on us is just like a cards of domino stack. When one is down, others are also down brought by it. And we can see that to bring all the cards back up together, we need cooperation. We need everyone to go back up together also. And here, France economy has been also experiencing major downturn with the biggest recession ever since 1945. And there also with the incoming second wave of coronavirus, as for now, it has also been very difficult for the government of France to manage the economy. As for every 2 weeks, the country is locked down by the virus. The Bank of France expects the economy to shrink by 1.5%. I believe that that is the major issues for every country in this council. And with this, the delegate of France would like to bring the cooperation of all the member council to make practical solutions all together in terms to solve this pandemic problems we are truly facing as for now. Thank you. I yield my time back to the chair.
All right, thank you again to the Delegate of France. Delegates, another friendly reminder, it is not in order to refer to yourself with the first person pronoun, aka I. Please remember that you are representing a country and therefore use the delegate of your country to refer to yourself or we, but definitely not I, since again you are representing your country. Just another reminder. Now, before opening the floor to points and motions, the chairs would like to entertain one final speaker for the general speakers list. Is there one more delegate that wishes to be included in the general speakers list? Yes, delegate of South Korea, you have been acknowledged. And with that, delegate of South Korea, you now have the floor.
Thank you, honorable chairs and fellow delegates. The number of confirmed COVID-19 cases around the world has skyrocketed, and economic recession that comes after are inevitable, with second quarter GDP shrinking by 3.3% from the previous quarter. The South Korean economy entered a technical recession for the first time since 2003 and its steepest decline since 1998. GDP mostly declined on weak demand for South Korean exports, which account for around 40% of GDP. However, domestic consumption of goods is returning to pre-pandemic levels in May, despite the fall in exports having a significant impact on manufacturing. Um, this was the sharpest decline in jobs since data began collected in 2009. The Republic of Korea considers the economic recession as one of the most urgent global situations in the midst of COVID-19 pandemic. Therefore, uh, South Korea is progressing and willing to cooperate to address the socio-economic problems to immediately tackle and reduce the impact. Thank you. I yield my time back to the chair.
Thank you very much to the delegate of South Korea. And with that, we will now temporarily close the general speakers list and open the floor to points and motions. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Delegates, now would be the appropriate time to propose motions, most recommendedly a moderated caucus, so that you can focus your debate on a, a more specific topic and more allocated speaking time. With that being said, are there any points or motions on the floor? Delegates? Yes, delegate of Philippines.
The delegate of Philippines would like to propose a motion for a moderated caucus discussing how do the countries respond to the COVID-19 situation for 5 to 1. Thank you.
That is in order. Thank you, delegate of Philippines. Are there any other points or motions on the floor? This is only the first session, delegates. You are advised to be active in this conference, and I suppose I understand that there are many first timers in here, but it no, it's fine making mistakes here because uh, again, this is also the first time for the chairs as well. So let's let, let's not be perhaps too embarrassed here and be more enthusiastic. With that being said, are there again any points or motions on the floor?
Delegate, please, we encourage you to raise the motions, as this is the part of scoring also, so we can see the active delegates in here. Thank you very much.
Again, we will entertain for at least another two motions for this round. Unfortunately, seeing none, we will directly vote upon the motion brought forward by the delegate of Philippines for a moderated caucus with a total speaking time of 5 minutes and a speaker time of 1 minute regarding how the countries respond to COVID-19. Are there any seconds for this motion? Please raise your hand if you second this motion. Delegates, please raise your hand if you second this motion. Not even the delegate of the Philippines themselves? Okay, we now see 3 seconds. Are there any objections to this motion? Seeing none, this motion automatically passes. We now move to a moderated caucus on the topic of how the countries respond to COVID-19. We will now open room for 5 speakers regarding this topic. Are there any speakers? Are there any delegates wishing to speak for this topic? Oh, our apologies. The delegate of Philippines, would you like to speak first or last?
Last, please.
All right, last it is. Are there 4 delegates wishing to speak before the delegate of Philippines? The delegate of Egypt. Delegate of Australia. Any others? Again, active participation is encouraged. Please do not, yes, delegate of South Korea. Please do not be afraid to take any missteps since we're all learners here. We will entertain room for one more speaker. Is there? Yes, delegate of France. And with that, we now begin our moderated caucus with our first speaker, delegate of Egypt. Delegate of Egypt, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. So, for the COVID-19 situation so far, Egypt has been done several things. So the first is the Assistant Health Minister and Coordinator of COVID-19, Kamal, said that 842 people have been volunteered in just 1 week to take part in Egypt coronavirus vaccine trials. And then next that we'll be raising awareness of the citizens through the various media platform and the importance of vaccine tests. And first 2 phases is already complete. The third phase has begun. And the first 2 phases phase of vaccine is positive so far. That means the vaccine is work to protect its citizens. And then for the economy situations, Egypt is that it doesn't do any lockdowns. They still let the citizens work and do some activity like usual, but with the restrict health health rules such as
Delegate, your
wearing
time has
masks.
elapsed. Yes, thank you very much, delegate of Egypt, but your time has elapsed. We now move on to the delegate of Australia. The delegate
Okay,
of
thank you so
Australia,
much.
you have the floor.
Okay, thank you so much, Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. For this current condition, Australia also adjusting the lockdown systems. And to prevent the economic recession and response to the COVID-19, Australia would likely to make a high demand for good and service will be lowered, then put concentrates to an industry sectors as tourism, hospitality, and retail trade. Moreover, we also support for individuals and households, including job keeper payment and saving the job seeker one by taking a financial assistance, also income support for individuals, even household, will prevent the dropping income or supply graphics. Uh, the alternative back to the chair.
Yes. Thank you very much, Delegate of Australia. Another reminder, in in moderated caucuses, it is unnecessary to yield your remaining time. Should you have any remaining time, it will be exhausted and cannot be yielded to anyone else. We now move on to the delegate of South Korea. South Korea, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chairs. The Republic of Korea considers the success in disease prevention and control to the recovery of the economy and hence from upgrading the social distancing level in areas with increasing number of cases and continued implementation of 3T, which is test, trace, and treatment strategy. Underscoring the importance of the development and distribution of safe and effective vaccines and therapeutics for global economic recovery, the Republic of Korea continuing collaboration through multilateral mechanisms, including the COVID-19 Vaccine Global Access or COVAX facility, a global platform for the supply of vaccines in order to develop vaccines successfully and for all the countries to have adequate and equitable access to vaccines regardless of their income. Despite the accomplishment, the conditions remains worrying as the pandemic is still spreading and efforts to reinforce the socioeconomic chains are still not getting the desired outcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, delegate of South Korea. We now move on to the delegate of France. Delegate of France, you may now have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. And thank you also for delegates of Australia, delegates of Egypt, and delegates of South Korea for already speaking out their concerns regarding this pandemic. France, with its healthcare system, which is amongst the world's best and includes world-class biological research establishment, we have helped China open its maximum security virus research laboratory in Wuhan back in January. And we are also establishing the French Scientific Council, which is formed of French experts in healthcare to help predict and also help better manage the effects of the pandemic that is now happening to the health system. We are also begin providing the social welfare for those affected by the disease and related to recession. This welfare was enacted on March. Okay, thanks.
The time has elapsed. Thank you, Delegate of France. We now move on to the last speaker for this topic, which is the Delegate of Philippines. Delegate of Philippines, you may now have the floor.
Thank you, chairs, distinguished delegates. As we have stated before, the priority of UPID is to save life as many as we can. We have applied the enhanced community quarantine and the general community quarantine, uh, and we have strict confinement measures implemented to contain the spread of the virus, including the extensive restriction on travel and mass gatherings, and the closure of schools and non-essential business, and the stay-at-home order. We have also applied the rule of mandatory wearing of face masks outside the homes. What we have done for the businesses in our country is to give a credit guarantee for the affected small business as well as an enhanced net operating loss carryover of 5 years for to help the business cope with the loss for COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Delegate of Philippines. And with that, our moderated caucus has elapsed. We now open back the floor to towards points and motions. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Yes, Delegate of France.
Thank you, Chair. A delegate of France would like to propose the moderated caucus for 5 to 1.5 about the challenges in tackling the effects from the pandemic recession.
Delegate of France, I believe you mentioned the speaking time was 1.5 minutes and the total speaking time was 5.
Sorry, I mean for 5 people then.
For 5 people, and I assume the speaking time is still 1.5 minutes?
Correct.
Then that would rather be 7.5 minutes for the total speaking time. I believe that
Sorry,
is all
then,
right.
yeah, 7.5 is fine. Thank you.
Alrighty then. Are there any other points or motions on the floor? You may now lower your hand, Delegate of France. Now, I suppose this is rather an unorthodox moves from the chair, but since this is a beginner level conference and at the discretion of the chair will advise that a delegate motion for a moderated caucus discussing your solutions towards the current problem at hand. With that being said, again, are there any points or motions on the floor? Yes, Delegate of South Korea.
The delegates of South Korea would like to propose a moderated caucus in the topic of discussing the solutions to the pandemic that is been going on for um, for 6 to 1.
4-6 to 1. Correction, reporter, for 6 to 1. That is in order. Thank you, Delegate of South Korea. We will entertain for one more motion before moving on to voting procedure. Is there one final point or motion on the floor? Yes, Delegate of Philippines.
We would like to propose a motion discussing the solution for the economic downturn as the result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
And that will be a moderated caucus.
Yes.
For how long?
For 5 to 1.
5 to 1. All right, that is in order. Thank you. And with that, we will now move on to voting procedure for, first of all, the motion brought forward by the Delegate of France regarding challenges to tackling the pandemic, which is a moderated caucus for 7.5 to 1.5. Are there any seconds for this motion? Any more seconds? Yeah. Okay. Are there any objections for this motion? Seeing none, this motion automatically passes. We will now move on to a moderated caucus brought forward by the Delegate of France with the topic of challenges to tackling the pandemic. First of all, The delegate of France, would you like to speak first or last?
Last, please.
Last, all right. We will now entertain four speakers. Or our apologies, the chair stand is corrected. Or never mind. Yes, we will entertain room for four speakers during this moderated caucus. Are there any delegates wishing to be included in this moderated caucus? Anybody?
Delegates, please, we highly encourage you to fill as in the moderated caucus.
Delegates? Yes, delegate of Egypt. Delegate of Philippines. Are there any more delegates? Delegate of Australia.
Excuse me, Chair. Can I see the motions once again?
Yeah. Yes, there's an order, but there's an order. It is challenges to tackling the pandemic brought forward by the delegate of France.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
All right, and also next time, please use a point of parliamentary inquiry whenever you wish to ask a question. We have room for one final speaker for this moderated caucus. Is there one final delegate who wishes to be included in to speak about of this topic? Seeing none, for now we will start with the delegate of Egypt. Delegate of Egypt, you now have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. So, thank you, France, for bringing the motions regarding the challenge in tackling COVID-19 virus in Egypt. Even though we've been done some vaccine and then do some health restriction and try to protect our citizens with our maximum energy, but still there's the challenge in tackling this COVID-19. So um, uh, the hospital also suffer from a lack of intensive care beds and ventilators, and substandard sanitary conditions make it difficult to protect the medical staff and patients from the spread of COVID-19 virus. Currently in Egypt has only 1.2 million doctors for every 100 people, significantly fewer than OECD average of 3.4 and the global average of 1.9. The shortage of sufficient medical personnel compounds the difficulty of preventing contagion in population of 100 million living in the overcrowded um, conditions. Thank you. I would like to yield my time back to the chair.
Yes, my uh, my apologies. My internet connection is currently unstable, but we will now carry on to the delegate of Philippines. The delegate of Philippines, you now have the floor.
Cheers. As we have stated before, Philippines have applied the quarantine and the lockdowns in our country, and the challenges that we are facing in applying our policy of quarantine is these policies affecting the business, especially the small business in our countries, and also the employees, as it is affected the work arrangement, such as reduced working days and hours, and some of the employees are forced to leave and work from home. And this has also affected our government infrastructure program. And this whole situation has greatly affected the people of Philippines. Also, we believe that this affected the people in all countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate of Philippines. We now move on to the Delegate of Australia. Delegate of Australia, you may now have the floor.
Okay, from delegates of Australia, we first need to see the stabilization of economic and social condition in there. In Australia itself, we have the social inequalities where the pandemic disproportionately impacts those from ethnic minority and low socioeconomic backgrounds. Even though we're in a developing country, the indigenous Australia are particular risk with indigenous households more likely to be intergenerational as well as living in overcrowded and inadequate housing. So when the economic rising up, the health of the economics will be lowered. That will be happens when the lack of culturally appropriate information and under engagement with mainstream health service exacerbates risk for indigenous people.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Delegate of Australia. We, we still have one. We still have room for one final speaker before the Delegate of France. Is there any delegate wishing to be included to speak about this topic? Anybody? At the discretion of the chair would like to input the delegate of Jamaica to speak regarding this topic. The, the delegate of Jamaica, the floor is yours. Delegate of Jamaica, are you there?
Delegate of Jamaica. Okay, we're going to have the roll call after this session. Sure.
We suppose the delegate of Jamaica is currently not present. We, under the chair's discretion, for once again, we would like to uh, uh, assign the slot to the delegate of Malta instead. Delegate of Malta, you may now have the floor.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity here. So, Malta is challenged the COVID-19 reminds us how much crucial farmers are securing Malta's fragile food supply. Um, The question is, will it be the wake-up call to farming from decline and concern? So Unit Work set up the Malta Youth in Agricultural Foundation, or MAYA, to protect the interests of young Maltese farmers.
All right, thank you, Delegate of Malta. And with that, we now move to our final speaker for this topic, the Delegate of France. Delegate of France, you may now have the floor.
Thank you, Chair and distinguished delegates, and thank you for all the delegates before. And with this pandemic, France has also been facing major challenges in reviving back the economy and tackling the whole pandemic in a whole. In France, we are facing several major challenges. For example, in the tourism industry, which makes up around 10% of the French economy, which now has lost its international tourists and has been turning into a very downturn over the past months. And also the second major challenge is about the unemployment of the youths and also the workers in France, that it has fallen into 8% in the 2020. And through that, the France actually has enacted a new policy called One Young One Solution Plan, in which the employers are given strong incentives to hire young people in the aftermath of the coronavirus pandemic, which has inflicted devastating economic damage. We believe that this kind of measures might be applicable to other countries than France, and might also boost up again by bringing up again the economy, bringing up again the tourism industry and the other industry that are losing its okay. Thank
The time
you.
has elapsed. Thank you very much, Delegate of France. And with that, this moderated caucus has elapsed. We now open the floor once again to points or motions on the floor. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Again, another reminder, motions that have failed before can be brought up again. So motions that have failed aren't doomed to be failed forever. You absolutely can bring it up again. And that is what the chair will recommend to do. With that being said, are there any points or motions on the floor? Yes, Delegate of Philippines.
We would like to propose a motion regarding the solutions for economic downturn during pandemic for 5 to 1. Thank you.
Or 5 to 1, I believe. All right, that is in order. Thank you, Delegate of Philippines. Are there any other points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, we will now move on to vote for the motion brought forward by the Delegate of Philippines. Are there any seconds for this motion? Are there any objections to this motion? South Korea, was that an objection?
No, Chair. It was for the second.
Understood. Malta, is that an objection? Delegate of Malta, is that an objection, or were you just seconding the motion?
I would like to propose the motion.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity here. So Delegate of Malta will propose a motion in topic of state compensation savings. Sorry, is state compensation.
This will be a moderated caucus for how long?
5 to 1.
5 to 1. Yes.
Sorry, delegate. Probably you can describe the topic longer rather than state compensation, as the other delegates might have the confusion regarding this topic. So please make it uh, make it comprehensive.
Delegate of Malta will propose a motion and topic of state competition during the pandemic.
Okay, state compensation during the pandemic. Thank you very much, Delegate of Malta.
That is in order. We would now like to get back once again to the motion brought forward by the delegate of Philippines. We have seen seconds for this motion, but again, are there any objections towards this motion? Again, Malta was. Is this an objection to the motion brought forward by the delegate of Philippines, or yes? Seeing no objections for this motion automatically passes. We now move to a moderated caucus for brought forward by the delegate of Philippines to discuss solutions to the economic downturn. Delegate of Philippines, would you like to speak first or last?
Last, please.
Last. Understood. And now we will entertain 4 other speakers to speak for this motion. Are there any delegates wishing to speak for this motion? Anybody? Delegates? Delegate of South Korea? Are there any others? Delegate of Netherlands, yes. Delegate of Egypt. And the delegate of Malta. And with that, we will start with our first speaker, the delegate of South Korea. Delegate of South Korea, you may now have the floor.
Thank you, honorable chairs, and thank you for the delegates of Philippines that have suggested these motions. Considering health as the foremost important, we also believe that economic recovery is about protecting jobs and workers, ensuring decent work, and protecting productive assets, productive units, and productive networks during the crisis. Therefore, uh, South Korea will recommend the Raise, Open, and Minimize program, or in short, ROM program, to help overcome the effects of economic recession. First, raise awareness of world economic recession and the importance to reinforce the movement of regional and international product supply and demand. Countries that are in need for supplies and staple necessities should be taken precedence to endure this time of crisis, including its request for medical equipment and supplies. Debts to be paid must and will be delayed when stability is achieved. Thank you. I think time is over.
Yes, it has indeed. And now we move on to the delegate of Netherlands. Delegate of Netherlands, you may now have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Chair and other delegates. So the delegates of Netherlands suggest rather unorthodox methods in handling the economic recession, which is investing. Investing in what exactly? In education. And as we may know, investing in education is a long-term solution to the pandemic, but the effect of the solution is massive, starting from increase in human resources, new ideas to finding new jobs, and for a lot of people. And not only this resolve the economic problem, but a lot of problem in other section too. The downside of this solution, uh, we still need people to survive in this pandemic. So even though we're investing, we should always make sure to have reserve for the people to survive this pandemic. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Delegate of Netherlands. We now move on to the Delegate of Egypt. Delegate of Egypt, you may now have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. Thank you, the delegates of Philippines or France. I'm sorry, I forgot already bring this motion. So the uh, the solutions regarding the economy recession is the Arab Republic of Egypt um, try to try to develop the technology innovation and entrepreneurship centers, or as called as TEIC. Incubation program highlighted the different initiatives both currently incubated and graduated startups have taken to help people and business overcome the coronavirus imposed threats. And more startups from TIC have also started the new initiative to help the society. But still, we um, we prioritize the health organ. Yeah,
Delegate, your time has elapsed. Thank you very much. We now move on to the Delegate of Malta to give their speech. Delegate of Malta, you may now have the floor.
Thank you for the chair, and thank you for the delegate of Philippines for the proposed motion. Malta will say one of the solutions is giving 6 month moratorium of facilities sanction prior. Credit and financial institutions licensed by the Malta Financial Service Authority have been directed to over a 6 month moratorium on repayment of capital and interest to support economically to vulnerable persons who have been materially affected by the COVID-19 outbreaks. Application by borrowers are to be made with their respective credit or financial institution until 6 months prior. The borrowers will need to apply to the respective credit or financial institution, and the moratorium itself comes into effect once the application has been approved. Credit and financial institutions have the right to refuse the application as long as this is done with
Your
the
time has
terms of
elapsed, Delegate. Thank
oh,
you
okay,
very
thank you.
Thank you very much. We now move on to the final speaker for this topic, the Delegate of Philippines. Delegate of Philippines, you may now have the floor.
Thank you, Cheers, and thank you, fellow delegates, for talking about the solution in your country. As for Philippines, we have a guarantee program for the businesses and the small businesses, and the program is called Small Business Wage to subsidize the small businesses in our countries. We have also have the National Economic and Development Authority program, which is very important, and we have prioritized it in crafting the economic recovery plan and gradually lifting our economic. We have also have the National Economic and Development Authority, which in this program it will help the government distribution of relief measures uh, amid the coronavirus disease. And that is how we tackle the economic issues in our country. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Delegate of Philippines. And with that, this moderated caucus has elapsed, and we now open the floor once again to points or motions. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Yes, Delegate of Netherlands.
The delegates Netherlands suggest an unmoderated caucus for 15 minutes.
That is in order. Thank you, Delegate. Are there any other points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, we will now move to vote upon the motion brought forward by the Delegate of Netherlands for an unmoderated caucus for 15 minutes. Are there any seconds for this motion? Are there any objections? Seeing none, this motion automatically passes. We are now in session for an unmoderated caucus for 15 minutes, starting from when the rapporteur is ready. Now. You may discuss here. Delegates, you are in an unmoderated caucus. Please start speaking. You, you, you do not need to wait for the comments of shares or anything. You are in a free discussion. Discuss with
Yes,
other delegates whatever
delegates.
you wish.
Yes, we highly encourage you to be active in this unmoderated caucus since we need to talk about the karmas that has been written in our study guide before.
Thank you, chairs. I would like to ask any delegates if they are going to further discuss their solutions. Are there anyone?
Okay, so Delegate of France thinks that there should be a short-term and long-term solutions, in which Delegate of France thinks that solutions from each of countries can be combined and also be further collaborated through. So we think that maybe we could start by hearing again of each solutions, since we think that in the last moderated caucus it was not facilitated to all the delegates. So maybe we could start by flooring down our solutions first.
Yes. Who wants to start first? I want to ask the delegates of Netherlands. You were talking about investing, and can you elaborate it more so that we can understand how you mean about that?
Okay, so the meaning of investing in education, one of the programs that can be made in investing in education will be such as you make education program which will be broadcasted in the national television, for example, and some other things like maybe making a new system, or maybe you give the uh, the students the technology to still learning even though we cannot go to our school, like that. But even though we're investing in education, we should not neglecting our people that doesn't have a job. So I mean, we're focusing in investing, but we're not neglecting the other people.
I want to ask which sector of maybe one of you are most concerned about in the economic downturns that you all have um, experienced in your countries, so that maybe we can focus it more on that sectors to have reached the possible wanted solution.
I would like to respond to the South Korea question. For our country, I think we think the priority and the problem of economic downturn in our country is the small businesses because it is the small businesses are greatly affected by the COVID-19, and also the travel sector since there are lots of like a travel ban or anything as the result of COVID-19. So I think those two sectors are greatly affected. Okay.
Same as well here in South Korea, also experiencing travel since uh, for the past few years, travel is the most um, uh, tourism is the most uh, well known from South Korea. So it has uh, accounted for loss in 70%. I think 70% on our data, on our economics, yeah, financially. What's the others concern?
Yeah, Delegate of France also thinks the same with Delegate of South Korea and Philippines that small to medium enterprises and also entrepreneurship are the most affected sectors in the as for right now, and also the tourism industry. That's why Delegate of France really suggests, and also the unemployment of as the result of this economic downturn. And so Delegate of France actually suggests aside from supporting by giving incentives to the small businesses, but also having a profit sharing scheme in which the companies they do allocate their money, mandatory or voluntary, to the for those of their employees that are in need. So basically, there's a profit sharing scheme as a revenue approved share scheme, which used by an employer to provide share-based remuneration to employees in a tax-efficient ways. So we think that uh, this kind of schemes could also brings up the buying power of the people as well, and so to save the economy. And also, uh, yeah, I think Delegate of France would like to speak as for now for that. I think we should hear also for from other delegates, maybe delegates of Australia or Egypt or Malta.
Okay, so Delegate of Egypt would like to deliver some solutions regarding the economy. In our country, we try to help in the small business by making new economy by making new economy sectors that is still safe enough to do in pandemic in this COVID-19 pandemic. And our several small business produce hygiene, hand gel, cleaning service, sterilizing cars against the coronavirus, and also sterilization service for homes and workplace. And even though we're doing some restriction on several places, but that doesn't mean the economy just stop like that. So that is so far that's the things that we could do to lift up the economy and still prioritize the health sectors. What about the other country?
Uh, Actually, I want to explain more about my solution about investing. So, what I meant by investing is not limited by only investing in education to university or high school student, but also maybe uh, making a courses for small businesses so they can have a new set of skills that will be useful for making a business that will still be working under through pandemic. So the focus is not giving them funds to their businesses, but in education, because if they just have the funds and not the ability to make use of their funds, then the funds will not be as useful as it is. Thank you.
Okay, delegates of Australia would like to deliver the solution. In Australia itself, we facing this pandemic, but we're not facing as big as the three last recession, such as in global crisis or in recession in 1990. But in this pandemic season, Australia economy is in stable point. So what we do is we still exporting our market to the East Asia region because we have strong relations with East Asia, especially in Japan, China, and any other East Asia country. And we also mm, saving the individuals and households uh, and also the job keeper payment. And we keeping the government additional debt to prevent the increase of long-term interest and the long-term effects of these pandemics. Thank you.
Regarding, I want to ask, the delegates of South Korea would like to ask the delegates of Australia regarding the exporting goods to East Asia. Was there any challenges that um, that you experienced during the exporting goods because in Japan, also known by the increasing cases of COVID-19. So, would it be worrying to export goods during this pandemic?
Apparently, we keep exporting to the Asian market. Like we said before, to especially to Japan and China, we don't have any problems or any challenging movements in there. But because we have a larger threat in technology, especially, and we also treat the global openness for threat and investment to the East Asia country. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone would like to speak on their solutions? I'm still hearing. Yeah, we're still hearing. If you still want to.
So delegates of Malta would discuss about solution in economics. One of economics impact is Malta will talking about small business, especially Malta will discuss in the field of tourism. While tourism was on hold, an e-learning platform was launched which offer free online courses to individuals working in the tourism sectors. The aim is that of making the best use of employer and employers' resources in these challenging times and empower workforce to come back stronger and better after COVID-19 pandemic. The courses itself are financed by the Malta Tourism Authority and cover a variety of skills and occupational levels. And the duration is 1 year's project.
And our time for unmoderated caucus has elapsed. And thank you, delegates. Now we are scheduled for a break on from 9:45 to 10 a.m. sharp. With considering that, the chairs would now highly encourage for delegates to motion for a suspension to the meeting for the break. With that being said, are there any points or motions on the floor? Delegate of South Korea.
The delegates of South Korea would like to propose the suspension of the meeting for 15 minutes.
That is in order. Thank you, delegates of South Korea. Are there any other points or motions on the floor? Seeing none, we will now vote upon the motion brought forward by the delegate of South Korea to suspend the meeting temporarily. Are there any seconds for this motion? Any objections? Seeing none, this motion automatically passes, and the meeting is currently in suspension. Delegates, you are now free to do anything you'd like, and please be back to the meeting at 10 a.m. sharp. Thank you.
Okay. Delegates, it's time for coffee break. You have 15 minutes for all your needs, and we highly recommend you to keep it in this room. And don't forget to return the room 5 minutes before the next committee sessions. Okay, thank you.
Okay, delegate, do you hear me?
Yeah,
Hello?
I hear you.
Okay. I just want to take a review regarding this committee session, the previous one, before the breaking time. Well, it is actually, the substance has been arranged enough well, but however you haven't connected the conversation or the speeches between one delegation and another. So the days are highly encourage you to try it better in the next two committee sessions by linking in the previous delegate to your speech, and then so we can have the next moderated caucus and also the unmode better than the previous committee session. I think that is for me. You get it? Okay, thank you. Have a nice coffee break time.
Delegates, we would like to remind you that time for coffee break is only 5 minutes left. Can we return to the room 5 minutes before the next committee sessions? Thank you.
Delegates, the time for the suspension of the meeting has finished. So we are going to have the next committee session, which is the second committee session. And before, we would like to remind you that every delegate in here has the right to send messages to the other delegates who are in this forum. And the way to do this is to do a private chat to discuss further related to this topic. The chair, or exactly I will give an example. Like for the example, I'm the representative of Indonesia country who will send a message to the delegates of Vietnam. Then I will ask in the message, what does your country see regarding this problem? And then we also request your active participation by turning on the start video button to turn on the web camera that you have. And furthermore, we will also explain that you need to discuss the draft resolution in this committee session, because after this and the next committee session, you will present the draft resolution. And please follow through until the end of the committee session is over. Do you understand, delegates?
All right, Chair.
Okay, thank you so much. So will the floor please come to order? Okay, before we begin, we shall begin with the roll call exactly. Please remember that when your delegation is named, please rise and state whether you are present or present and voting by unmuting yourself in this Zoom meeting. Okay, let's just start it. Delegate of Armenia. Delegate of Armenia? Okay, the delegate of Armenia is not present. The delegate of Australia.
Delegates of Australia is present and voting.
Okay, thank you so much, delegate of Australia. Delegate of Belarus. Delegate of Belarus is not present. Delegate of Brazil. Okay, delegate of Brazil is not coming here. Delegate of China. Delegate of China is not present. The delegate of Egypt.
The Arab Republic of Egypt is present and voting.
Thank you so much, delegate of Egypt. Delegate of Ethiopia. Delegate of Ethiopia seems not be here.
Delegates of Ethiopia is present and voting.
Okay, thank you very much. Delegate of France.
France is present and voting.
Thank you so much, delegate of France. Delegate of Germany. Delegate of Germany is not present. Delegate of Indonesia. Seems like delegate of Indonesia is not here already. Delegate of Ireland. Delegate of Jamaica.
Delegate of Jamaica is present and voting.
Okay, thank you so much, delegate of Jamaica. You are recognized. Delegate of Japan. Delegate of Japan is not here, seems. Delegate of Kenya. Delegate of Kenya is not present. Delegate of Korea. The Republic of Korea.
Delegates of South Korea is present and voting.
Thank you so much, delegate of the Republic of Korea. Delegate of Malta. Delegate of Malta. Okay, delegate of Malta is not coming here. Delegate of Mexico. Delegate of Mexico is not here. Delegate of Montenegro. Delegate of Montenegro is not here also. Delegate of Morocco. Okay, Morocco is not present. Delegate of Netherlands.
Delegates of Netherlands is present and voting.
Okay, thank you so much, delegates of Netherlands. Delegate of Philippines.
The delegate of Philippines is present and voting.
Thank you so much, delegate of Philippines. Delegate of Russian Federation. Delegate of Russian is not coming here. Delegate of Saudi Arabia. Thank you. Delegate of Saudi Arabia is not present. Delegate of Spain. Delegate of Spain is not present. Delegate of Thailand. Delegate of Thailand is not present. Delegate of Uruguay. Delegate of Uruguay is not present. And the delegates of the United States of America. Delegates of USA is not present. So the total present and voting is 8. So the majority vote is still 5. The quorum vote is still 5. The DR sponsor should be 1 and the DR signatory should be 2. Okay, thank you so much. Now the floor is open. We are proceeding to the general speakers list with each time speaking opportunity as much as 1.5 minutes. Are there any delegates who wish to be put into the general speakers list? Please raise your hand. Okay, delegate of Ethiopia, you have been recognized. Delegate of Egypt, you have been recognized. We demand 5 delegates at least to be put into the general speakers list, so please do raise your hand. Thank you so much. Please lower your hand. Delegates of Ethiopia, you have been recognized. Are there any delegates who wish to be put into the general speakers list? Please raise your hand. Okay, since there are still many delegates who just came to this forum, please do chat the chairs, the personal message resume to the chairs right now. Thank you very much. Okay, we demand the GSL more delegates. Please do raise your hand to be put into the general speakers list. We need at least 5 delegates. So it has been Ethiopia and Egypt who are in here. Please, 3 delegates. Delegate, we are highly encourage you. Okay, seems like we need to entertain. Okay, the delegate of Malta is present and voting. Reporter, please note that the delegate of Malta is present and voting. Okay, the chair decided to choose 3 delegates to be put into the general speakers list. The first one is the delegate of Australia. The second one is the delegate of France. And the last is the delegate of Philippines. Okay, thank you so much. Now, okay, now we have the delegate of Ethiopia. Ethiopia, you may have the floor.
Thank you, chairs, fellow delegates. The World Bank has predicted on global economic prospects in June 2020 that the COVID-19 pandemic condition would show the deepest recession since the World War II era. Moreover, the World Bank also predicted that global economy will be shrinking by 5.2% around the world. However, the fact can be more severe. For instance, developed countries like United States experienced economic strength by 32.9% during the second quarter. Other developed countries such as Japan, South Korea, Singapore, and the Eurozone also reported a devastating economic strength. Most of them even have reported the economic recession, marked 2 consecutive quarters of economic growth decline. Ethiopia, as a developing country, also are not immune from the economic recession brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. The Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia is one of those countries. Our national airline, Ethiopian Airlines, which contributed 5% to our economy, lost over $550 million. The agriculture and hospitality sector also affected. Ethiopia have two possible solutions for this problem. First, FFC or Food for Citizen, or focus on self-food fulfillment. And second, aid for business and citizens. Government should project aid for local business by giving some
Delegate,
amount of money
sorry,
to local business so we
Delegate
can
of
minimize the
Ethiopia, your
impact.
time has elapsed. Thank you very much. Next to speak is the
Okay.
delegate
Thank
of
you, chairs.
Egypt. You're welcome. Next to speak is the delegate of Egypt. Delegate, you may have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. So, as what we have been discussed before, all of the delegates is facing the same situation. First is economy, economy recession, and then the second is about the health sector. So, in this second comment section, I would be happy if each delegate try to work hand in hand to tackling this COVID-19 pandemic, so that we could save our country and then we could save our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate of Egypt. You still have seconds to it. Are you going to yield to the chair or yield to the question?
I would like to yield my time back to the chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Next to speak is the delegate of Australia.
Okay, thank you so much, Chair and other delegates for the opportunity. As we said before that we face almost the same problems, that we need to invest the businesses and every other sectors. In Australia itself, we facing this economic crisis, that the falling revenues and rising spendings, also the unemployment, which predicted will be rising into 1.2 million populations. But the International Monetary Fund forecasting that our stabilization of economic is much more better than any other developed countries such as UK, USA. And for the solution that we highly recommend is that we need to strengthen the fiscal policy and monetary policy. And because the fiscal stimulus is the role key to mitigating across countries and sectors of recession, since it gives a good potential in order to increasing savings instead of consumptions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate of Egypt. You still have 20 seconds, 27 seconds. How do you yield your time, Delegate?
I would like to yield back to the chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Delegate of Australia. Next to speak is the Delegate of France. Delegate, you may have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. So, Delegate of France thinks that this COVID pandemic is also we agree with what the delegate of Australia has said, that the monetary and fiscal policy needs to be strengthened in each country to have the economic reviving power of each country. The delegate of France also thinks that there should be a global partnership program in which the countries in this council could make hand in hand supporting working training for all the youths and also for those who are affected with unemployment, in which we also show them opportunities in the job market, and in that we believe that that will create more awareness on how the people could have hope and also could have better opportunities in having jobs, and actually eventually will make the economy revive again. We also believe that the country should have what we said with profit sharing scheme for all the eligible companies in each country that has surpassed certain of standards to actually give the profits in a tax efficient way for their employee that are affected highly, be it through a form of technical or money. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Delegate. Next to speak is the Delegate of Philippines. Delegate, you may have the floor.
Thank you, chairs, and thank you, fellow delegates. First of all, we would like to appreciate the delegate of Ethiopia for bringing the food and the small businesses as one of their main concerns in facing this pandemic situation, as it is also one of our country's big concern. I think it is very important to be concluded in the and the solution. Uh, and I think those two sectors are very important for us to give solutions to, because it will be give us a chance to survive this pandemic situation. Thank you. And I would like to give the time back
Thank
to
you.
the chair.
Back to who? Delegate?
Back to the chair, please.
Okay, thank you so much, Delegate of Philippines. And time has elapsed on this general speakers, and the floor is now open for points and motions. All those with points and motions, please raise your hand now. Delegate, are there points or motions on the floor? Okay, yes, the delegate of France, you are recognized.
Thank you, Chair. Delegate of France would like to raise a moderated caucus for 5-1 in the topic of economic solutions towards this small medium enterprises.
Okay, thank you so much, Delegate of France. Are there points or motions on the floor? Please raise your hand now. Okay, Delegate of Australia.
Okay, delegates of Australia would like to propose motions with the topic country's fiscal policy in response to COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Pardon, Delegate of Australia, country's fiscal policy with?
With country's fiscal policy in response to COVID-19 pandemic.
Okay, country's fiscal policy in response to COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much. Are there any objections and seconds on the floor?
5-1 minute.
Okay, 5-1. Thank you very much, Delegate of Australia. Are there any points of objections and seconds on the floor? Delegate? Okay.
Points here, which motion
Yes.
are we talking about?
We haven't vote. We haven't vote.
Okay.
So the chairs give the opportunity to one delegate if in case they would like to propose new motion. Are there any motions on the floor? Okay, no. Seeing none, we're going to vote the first motions brought by the delegate of France, which is the economic solutions toward small medium enterprises. Once again, economic solutions toward small medium enterprises. For those delegates who are in favor with this topic, please raise your hand. Okay, this motion clearly fails. Next, we're going to back to the second topic brought by the delegate of Australia with the topic of country's fiscal policy in response COVID-19 pandemic. For those who are in favor with the topic, please do raise your hand. Okay, France Delegate of France? Delegate of France?
Yes, Chair.
Are there any seconds or objections on the floor?
I'm sorry, are we talking about which motion, Chair?
The first one, your motions first.
Okay, I second my motion, Chair. Is that correct?
Okay, saying that the motions fails, we're going to have new motions again. Please delegate. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Okay, the delegates of Ethiopia.
The delegates of Ethiopia would like to repropose the motion regarding the economic solution for small and medium enterprises for 5-1.
Okay, the delegate of Ethiopia would like to propose the motion regarding the topic of the economic solutions towards small medium enterprises for 5-1. For those delegates who are in favor with the topic, please do raise your hand. We need at least 5 delegates. Okay, we need at least 5 delegates, and it is counted that it is just 4 delegates in here. Okay, delegates, please do raise your hand if you are accepting this motion to be passed. Okay, saying this motion is clearly passed. The delegate of Ethiopia, are you going to speak first or speak last?
I would like to speak first.
Okay, you're going to speak first. Next, we need at least 5 delegates to be put in this motion regarding the economic solutions to small medium enterprises. For those delegates who wish to be put into this topic, please raise your hand. Delegate? I saw a few people in here vote for this motion. So please, if you're in favor with this topic, please just speak in here. Okay, the delegate of South Korea. The delegate of Philippines, the delegate of France, and who else? Okay, yes?
Can I see the motion once again?
The motion is about the economic solutions towards small medium enterprises.
All right, thank you, chairs.
Yes. We need 1 delegate in here. Okay, delegate of Egypt. All right. First to speak is the delegate of Ethiopia. Delegate, you may have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Fellow delegates, as Ethiopia mentioned before, we have possible solutions that name Aid for Business and Citizens, or we simplify it as ABC program. ABC program is, to simplify ABC program is government should project aid for local business by giving some amount of money to local businesses, and by do that, Ethiopia believes it can minimize the effect of economic recessions. Moreover, if the government giving the money and aid for the citizen, We have a big hope that the citizen can spend their money on the local businesses and then make the economic growth once again, or at least stay away from recession. We don't expect this to be something that make economic growth very developed during this situation. It's just stay away from the recession and more suffering from the citizens. The Aid for Business and Citizens, or ABC, is not a
Delegate,
rhetoric
your
things.
time has
Thank you.
elapsed. Thank you very much. Next to speak is the delegate of South Korea. Delegate, you may have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, fellow delegates. For South Korea, the Republic of Korea is known by the famous TV shows that and we actually right now we have some TV shows that is conducting promotional for the local farmers uh, that are growing their crops, and they show how to make use more of their crops to the market. And by that, I think that the Republic of Korea thinks that the funding should be on the marketing of the uh, uh, marketing of these foods and the small businesses to make more.
Delegate, thank you very much. Your time has elapsed. Next to speak is the delegate of Philippines. Delegate of Philippines, you may have the floor.
Thank you, Chairs. The delegate of the Philippines have applied the guarantee program for affected small businesses, and we have also given aid for the small business wage, which is the subsidy program for 3.4 million employees in small businesses that is affected by the COVID-19 and the lockdown. And I think giving aid and help for the small businesses is very important to keep the economy afloat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Delegate of Philippines. Next to speak is the Delegate of France. Delegate, you may have your floor.
Thank you, Chair, and honorable Chair and distinguished delegates. As we all know that the recession that is currently happening right now is also affected by the GDP growth of each country, and as we all know also that the GDP is also being affected by also the export and import activities of each country, and that is also Delegate of French believes that by providing incentives, by providing aid for the SMEs, it will bring, and by giving them an expert insurance guarantee that would help them to regrow their businesses and also increase the export rates of the country itself. By this, so the export insurance will cover for duration of the COVID-19 epidemic its policyholder up to 19% of issued and declared guarantee commitment, and at or pre-financing setup compared pre-financing setup for the export activities with this okay.
Thank you very much, Delegate of France. Next to speak is the Delegate of Egypt.
All right, thank you, chairs. Thank you, honorable delegates. So regarding the small medium enterprises to lift up the economy situation, we the Arab Republic of Egypt has been mentioned before, we have several economy sectors that we built during this COVID-19 that is still safe to do. Um, so we divided into four. There are for pet care, health, wellness, and also in agriculture technology. Since our economy sectors, our biggest economy sectors is in tourism, and the other is the
Delegate,
agriculture. Oh,
your time has
thank you,
elapsed. Thank
Chair.
you very much. Next to have the agenda is having the points and motions. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Please raise your hand. Delegate, are there any points or motions on the floor? Please raise your hand. Delegate, we highly encourage you to propose the motion or points in this session. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Okay, delegates of Malta, you are recognized.
Thank you for the opportunity, chairs. So delegate of Malta will propose a motion in topic of obtaining financial support for individuals during the pandemics.
We beg the pardon, delegates of Malta.
Delegate of Malta will
Okay, continue.
propose a motion in topic of financial support for individuals during the pandemic.
Financial supports for individuals during the pandemic. Okay, for
you,
how
Chair.
many minutes?
For 5-1.
Okay, for 5-1. So the delegate of Malta would like to propose the motion regarding financial support for individuals during the pandemic for 5-1. Next two, are there any points or motions on the floor after the delegate of Malta? Okay, we will now vote upon the motion brought forward by the delegates of Malta for a moderate caucus. Are there any seconds for this motion? Any objections? Seeing both, we will now move to the procedural vote upon this motion. And those who are in favor of this motion, please do raise your hand.
Putri.
Okay.
Apologies, I will take over from here. We will repeat once again since we have not given enough time to respond regarding the seconds now. Again, I will ask for seconds regarding the motion brought forward by the delegate of Malta. Are there seconds to this motion? Delegate of Fpci, the delegate of France. Are there any objections for this motion? Any objections? Seeing none, this motion automatically passes. And we will now move towards moderated caucus with the topic of financial support for individuals during the pandemic. I now bring back the control over towards my co-chair, Putri.
Okay, thank you very much, the head chair, Mr. Rafazain. So we're going to find out the 5 persons for speaking regarding in this topic, financial support for individuals during the pandemic. For those who are wished to be put in this formal debate, please do raise your hand. Okay, delegate of France, delegate of Ethiopia, delegate of Australia. Okay, we need 2 delegates in here. Ethiopia, please lower your hand. You have been recognized. Delegate of Philippines. And last to speak is, okay. Okay, sorry, delegate of Malta, we haven't recognized your existence. Would you talk first or last?
Thank you, co-chairs. Can I talk last?
Okay, last please. Okay.
Thank you.
Reporter, so the Malta would like to speak last. Yes. Thank you very much, delegates of Malta. And first to speak that, we have the delegate of France in here. Delegate, you may have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. So, Honorable Chair and distinguished delegates of France believes that there are several key measures that each countries have to take to support financial support for individuals and to increase the buying power of each individual to make the economy revive again in the future. So we believe that in short term, the government, the delegate of French is proposing the solution of what we have said earlier for those who are still employed and are still but however still affected by the pandemic changes over their work. We suggest a profit sharing from their company's revenue for companies who has who are eligible for these standards, and we also support by that, as we have said before, the one young person one solution plan, which has been immense in France to support the young people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, delegate of France. Next to speak is the delegate of Ethiopia. Ethiopia, you may have the floor.
Thank you, chairs, fellow delegates. Ethiopia realized that giving money to individual, giving financial aid to individual is hard, but during the ABC program, it's more realistic rather than the other. Uh, the way we should look up is how to transparency about the giving money. And after giving money, Ethiopia encouraged the citizen to spend it on the small business and then focus on self-food fulfillment, which mean another program from us, FFC. Each country should rely on their resources using that money to feed its people to individuals, and individuals are advised to encourage farming fruits and vegetables for their own. Countries with long coastline can fishing and other. Thank you.
Thank you very much, delegate of Ethiopia. Next to speak is the delegate of Australia.
Okay, thank
Australia,
you so
you may
much.
have the floor.
Thank you so much, Chair and honorable delegates. In Australia itself, the financial supports during this pandemic is the JobKeeper payment. The JobKeeper payment helps businesses to keep people in their jobs so they can earn an income even if their in hours have been cut. But we have the regulations for those employers that they needs to the company needs to have multiple employers and they must be notified, and for that also for the citizens they also have the financial supports to early access to super, and for the job seeker payment, they have to be eligible and they have to allow the youth job seeker and parenting payment, which includes the single and partner payments, special benefits, or farm household loans. Thank you.
Thank you very much, delegate of Australia. Next to speak is the delegate of Philippines. Delegate, you may have the floor.
Thank you, chairs and fellow delegates. In addressing this problem, Philippines have a very straightforward solution, which is contained in four pillars. The first pillar is the emergency support for vulnerable groups and individuals, and the second one, expanded medical resources to fight COVID-19 and ensure the safety for the frontliners. The third one is the fiscal and monetary actions to finance emergency initiatives and keep the company afloat. And the fourth one is the economic recovery plan to create jobs and sustain growth. And the way we ensure that this will uh, apply smoothly is we have the government distribution of relief measures through the national ID system, so we can track it more easily from the national ID system uh, for our people. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Delegate of Philippines. Last to speak is the Delegate of Malta. Delegate, you may have your floor.
Thank you, chairs and delegates. So Malta provide a financial support to several groups of citizens. Some of these groups are when is unemployment, workers who lost their job with effects of COVID-19 were entitled to a new temporary benefit per month. And two is person with disabilities. A person with disabilities who had to stay at home due to the health concern that arises as a consequences of COVID-19 and could not work, telework, were entitled to a benefit per month. And three is a parents who, including single parents, um, who took additional unpaid leave to take care of children with while schools remains closed. When both parents work in the private sector, application will close. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Delegate of Malta. Now, we're going to proceed the points and motions. So, are there any points or motions on the floor, Delegate? Please do raise your hand. Delegate of Ethiopia?
Thank you, chairs. Delegates of Ethiopia would like to propose a motion for unmoderated caucus for 20 minutes.
Okay, unmoderated caucus for 20 minutes. That is in order. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Okay, we will now vote upon the motion brought forward by the delegate of Ethiopia for unmoderated caucus. Are there any seconds for this motion? Are there any seconds for this motion? Okay, any objections? Yes, seeing both, we will, this motion automatically passes. So we're going to have the unmoderated caucus for 20 minutes and starts from now. Delegate, the time for unmoderated caucus has started. Okay, please discuss it with the delegates inside of this forum.
Sorry, chairs, I would like to ask,
Yes?
are we allowed to discuss it outside this Zoom meeting?
All right. If it's possible, we're going to give you the link of it. Wait for a minute.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it has been given by the operator. So there are 2 rooms inside of the Google Meet, and please use your Unpad account to access this meets.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, delegate, the chairs would like to remind you that you are not allowed to leave this Zoom meeting. Instead, you can join the Google Meets that has been given by us. Thank you very much. Delegate. Okay, as we have done doing the unmoderated caucus, thank you very much for your enthusiasm in here. And next to the session is we're going to proceed the next session, which is points and motions. Are there points and motions on the floor? Please do raise your hand. Okay, delegate of Ethiopia.
Okay, the delegates of Ethiopia would like to propose a moderated caucus with the topic of the importance of regional integration during the pandemic.
Okay.
For 5-1.
For 5-1. So the importance of regional
integration
for 5-1. Are there any points or motions on the floor? Thank you very much, delegate. Delegate of Egypt. Okay, delegate of Egypt.
Delegates of Egypt would like to propose a motions about the refugee in COVID in pandemic of COVID-19 area. In pandemic of COVID-19, sorry.
The refugee in pandemic of COVID-19 era. Or
the refugee welfare.
The refugee welfare in pandemic of COVID-19. For how many minutes, delegates?
5-1.
5-1. Okay, rapporteur. The delegate of Egypt asked for 5-1 regarding the time. Now, as we will vote for the most disruptive issue, we will move to the delegate of Ethiopia for 5-1 regarding the topic of the importance of regional integration during the pandemic. Are there any seconds for this motion? Okay, any objection? Any objections, delegate? All right, we've seen delegate to vote for objection too. So saying both, we will now move to the procedural vote up in this motion. And those who are in favor of this motion, please raise your hand.
Putri?
Yes?
Bit correction there. Since there were no objections to this motion automatically passed.
No. I saw the objections too.
Were there any objections? Were there? I believe there weren't any objections unless there are delegates who do object to this motion. Any delegates?
Raise your hand, delegate.
I believe not. Then this motion should automatically pass.
Okay, this motion automatically passes. So we need 5 delegates of this topic. So for those who are wishing to be put into this formal debate regarding, sorry, it's on Ethiopia motion. It's not the Egypt motion. Yes, the importance of regional integration during the pandemic, rapporteur. Okay. So regarding to it, we need at least 5 delegates. Please raise your hand if you are in favor with this topic and in favor to speak in this topic. Okay, delegate of Ethiopia. Okay, sorry, delegate of Ethiopia. We haven't asked your existence here. Are you going to speak first or speak last?
I would like to going speak last.
Okay, speak last. Ethiopia will speak last. Are there any delegates in here wish to be put? Okay, delegate of France. Thank you very much. Delegate of Philippines. Thank you very much. Okay, we need 2 speakers more. Delegate. Okay, delegate of South Korea. The last one, please. Okay. So the chair has decided to put the delegate of Malta to be put in here. Okay, thank you very much. Now we have the floor on the delegate of France, please.
Thank you, Chair. Delegates, France believe and France recognize that geographical aspects might be the factor that would slow us down on the issues we are going to be talking about. So, Delegate of France thinks the importance on the regional cooperation is highly needed as as we could implement more feasible solutions that would be implemented easily to the countries that are affected to create more inclusivity and to create greater impact and to create more practical solution. We believe that uh, regional cooperation is highly needed. As for in the European Union itself, we have taken several measures to actually in response to COVID and reviving the economy, and we would love to see this expand even better in other region and also to enhance what we have done in the EU if we could implement in your region too. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate of France. Next to speak is the Delegate of Philippines. Delegate, you may have the floor.
Thank you, chairs and distinguished delegates. We agree that regional cooperation is very important during this pandemic because this pandemic is a global issue that affect all of us. So therefore, cooperation is very important for us in order to survive. And we, as for Philippines, through the ASEAN, have cooperated with the 3+ countries, including South Korea, and we have also make a cooperation with the Australia and New Zealand. And what we do is to minimize the human and the social cost of the COVID-19, as well as to support economic recovery. And we also try to help the health security and building a stable and a prosperous for for our region. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate of Philippines. Next to speak is the Delegate of South Korea. Delegate, you may have the floor.
Thank you, chairs. Just like what the delegate of Philippines said, the Republic of Korea, as the 3+ countries, including Japan and China, is in contribution to the ASEAN Response Fund, which to reinforce the ASEAN's capacity to respond to the pandemic. We um, we also acknowledge the importance to facilitate trade and investment in the region to maintain sound food supply chain with economic recovery. Thus, the Republic of Korea has agreed to create a fast-track entry program with some ASEAN countries to ensure that the essential travel is guaranteed and that added protocols or people-to-people exchange in a calibrated manner could be further considered. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate of South Korea. Next to speak is the Delegate of Malta. Delegate of Malta, you may have the floor.
Delegates of Malta is believed that two countries, if agreed on effort to increase cooperation and strengthen the potential in the field of trade and investment. One of country that Malta has have negotiation is with Indonesia. Malta expressed its support to improve Indonesia's relationship with the European Union and appreciated Indonesia's effort in producing sustainable palm oil and stressed the importance of open dialogue between Indonesia and European Union on related issues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And last to speak is the delegate of Ethiopia. You may have the floor.
Okay, thank you, chairs, fellow delegates. Ethiopia believes that regional integration is important. Doesn't mean that bilateral or international agreement other than regional is not important, but regional cooperation could see the problem in the most unlikely same perspective, because of the same geographical things, same culture, and same problems. COVID-19. Ethiopia, as a member of African Union, has done with African Union to make a COVID-19 response funds, yeah, which means this is a continental response strategy that called Joint African Continental Strategy on COVID-19 that endorsed by the health ministers of each member of African Union countries. Ethiopian believe this important both for health and economic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, delegate of Ethiopia. And the time has elapsed for this formal debate. And the chairs highly recommend and highly encourage you to propose the motion regarding the suspension of the meeting, telling that we're going to have the lunch break for the minutes ahead. So please just raise it. Any points or motions on the floor, delegate? Okay, delegates of Ethiopia.
Delegates of Ethiopia would like to propose a break for 30 minutes, maybe.
Okay, that is in order. Sorry, but probably you can propose 40 minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, repeat once again. The delegates of Ethiopia would like to propose a motion to have a break for 40 minutes.
Okay, that is in order. So now we're going to suspend the meeting for the lunch break time. And please don't leave the Zoom meeting since we're going to have it back again approximately at 12 past 10. Okay, at 12 past 10 for the last committee session in this day. So please just have our lunch break. Thank you very much. And yes, delegate, as the head chair has sent the draft resolution into the line group of SCC 2020 regarding the draft resolution itself. Please set the format like what Jayan has sent before. Okay. Thank you very much.